Hey, welcome to The Explainer. You know those headlines you see all the time about new scientific studies? Well, today we're going to dive into one of the most common types you'll ever come across. And yeah, as you can probably guess from this, we're going to try and get to the bottom of that classic puzzle. Which came first?
So picture this. You're scrolling online and you see a headline. Something like, "New study links low vitamin D to erectile dysfunction." Okay, that's interesting, right? A fascinating connection. But here's the big question. Does it actually prove that one causes the other? That one little word, cause. Well, that's where things get really tricky in science. I mean, just think about it for a second. To really truly prove that something causes something else, you'd have to run this enormous, super expensive study following thousands of people for years. Researchers just can't do that for every single idea they have. They need something quicker, something cheaper, to just get a first glance, to see if there's even any smoke before they spend a fortune looking for the fire.
And that, my friends, is where our topic for today comes into play. The cross-sectional study. The absolute easiest way to think about it is like this. It's a snapshot, a single photo of a group of people, just frozen at one exact moment in time.
Okay, so the concept is actually super simple. You grab a group of people, and in one single go, you measure two things at the exact same time. So, going back to our example, you check someone's vitamin D level right now, that's what we call the exposure, and in that same breath, you ask if they have erectile dysfunction, the disease, and boom, click, the snapshot is taken.
So what do you get from this kind of snapshot? Well, it tells you the prevalence of something. Basically, how many people have a condition right now. And since you're doing it all at once, it's really fast and pretty cheap. Now, its real power isn't about giving you the final, definitive answer. Nope. It's about sparking those initial ideas, those crucial hypotheses that you can then go and test later with bigger, better studies.
All right, so once you have this snapshot, how do you even analyze it? Well, it's actually way more straightforward than you might think.
Basically, it all comes down to this simple little grid, a 2x2 table. Everybody in the study gets put into one of four boxes. In the first box, let's call it A, you've got people who are exposed and have the disease. Box B, they were exposed but are healthy. Box C is the opposite, not exposed but they have the disease. And finally, Box D is for people who are neither exposed nor have the disease.
And the whole reason for doing all this sorting? It's to answer one really simple question. Is this disease more common in the group that was exposed compared to the group that wasn't?
And here's how they figure that out. They look at the exposed group and calculate the percentage of people in it who are sick. Then they do the exact same thing for the not exposed group. That's it. The whole game is just to see if those two percentages are different.
Okay, so the researchers crunch the numbers and bam, they find a connection. But this is where we run smack into the single biggest, most important catch with this type of study. It's what I like to call the chicken or egg problem.
Just imagine you're the researcher for a sec. The math is all there. It turns out the prevalence of erectile dysfunction is way higher in the group with low vitamin D. You found an association, a link. This is exactly the kind of stuff that makes for a splashy headline.
But, and this is a huge but, here is the million-dollar question that a snapshot can never answer. We see a picture of someone who has both low vitamin D and erectile dysfunction at the same time. What we have no way of knowing is which one came first.
And that's the fundamental problem. We can't figure out what scientists call the temporal relationship. It's just a fancy term for the order of events. Did the low vitamin D happen before the other problem started? A single photo doesn't have a timestamp, right? It just tells you what's going on in that one frozen moment.
So this leaves us with two totally different possible stories. Story number one is what the headline wants you to think. Low vitamin D leads to erectile dysfunction. But there's a story number two that's just as possible. It's called reverse causality. What if it's the other way around? What if having erectile dysfunction makes someone less active, maybe they don't go outside as much, which then causes their vitamin D to drop? See the problem? The snapshot alone can't tell you which of those stories is the real one.
So you might be thinking, well, are these studies totally useless then? And the answer is absolutely not. We just have to know what they're for. They aren't built to prove cause and effect. Their job is to be a launchpad for new ideas.
There's a great line from a classic epidemiology textbook that just nails it. It says, these studies are the groundwork for hypothesis development. And that's it right there. They're the first step, the part where you find the interesting clues that are actually worth digging into later. Think about the whole scientific journey, right? It all starts with just noticing something.
The cross-sectional study is that fast, cheap step 2 where you check if there's a real statistical link. And if there is, then you've got what you need to build a real hypothesis and justify spending the big bucks on a study that can actually figure out the timeline.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you? Just living your life, seeing these headlines pop up every day, what's the main takeaway here?
Just remember this, it's a snapshot. That means it can show you a link or an association, but it can't ever prove one thing caused another. Its biggest weakness? That chicken or egg problem. But its greatest strength? It's a fantastic way to generate interesting new ideas super fast and without breaking the bank.
So from now on, when you see a headline that says, a study links, coffee to living longer, or screen time to anxiety, you now know the #1 question you should ask yourself. Wait, what kind of study was this? And if you find out it was a cross-sectional study, you'll immediately know, okay, this is an interesting clue, but it's not the final answer. And just like that, you've become a much smarter, more critical reader of science. Thanks so much for tuning in.